Hello everybody, welcome back. So in the previous video, I introduced you to key concepts of iterators. And the key concepts in Python are iterables and iterator. And then I cover how the for loop is going to be looking for iterators. Iterators are objects that implement the next method. Then I showed you I introduced you to a class that will instantiate an iterator. And so I showed how this class has the next method that is going to be pulling up the next method on that iterable, or in the way that it's implemented, right? It's going to be getting you the next value that you're going to iterate in this case. In this particular example is the inclusive range iterator that looks like the range function, built-in function from Python, except it's going to include the very last value just to make it unique. So we're going to send as inputs two inputs, start and end, numeric, both of them numeric, and is going to return the current number. That means the iteration current number. So it's going to be returning your iterations. Very well. One other aspect is if you do not send a numeric integer, is going to raise a type error. It's going to let you know. And let's go ahead and run it. And as we run it, we can go over more aspects of this class. All right. For some of you, this is the first time that you see a class. So let me restart the kernel so you can see how it's going to run. So restarting clear output, because you already see what's going to happen. But let's just do it. There it is. It's all clear now. We start, and first we run this class. We let the computer, my algorithm, know that we have this class, and now we are going to run the iterator for the first time. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define the start value. The start value that I'm going to send, and then an end value. In this case, I said 5. So I'm going to send 5 to 15. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send this 5 to 15 right here. And in this line of code, I'm going to invoke that class InclusiveRangeIterator. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm instantiating an object. And the name of my object is range underscore iterator. That's what I called it. You know, I have to call it something. So once I instantiate an inclusive range class object called range iterator, such iterator is going to have properties, and one of the properties is to have the next method in it. That way, the for loop that comes next will be able to iterate over it. If there is no next method, then the for loop will not know what to do with it. Now, there are iterables like lists and dictionaries that you can pass and that you can use in the for loops, but those iterables allow the for loop to create the iterator out of them, because lists do not have they're not iterators, they're iterables, and those iterables are not objects that have next, right? In my case, it's a little bit different. I am not passing an iterable. I am passing an object that is instantiated of class InclusiveRangeIterator that already includes the next value in it. So when I run it, the for loop is going to know what to do with it. So let's run this command, right? So a lot to unpack in what I just said, but we're going to do this and explain this a few times to make sure we're covering those key concepts. Okay, very well then. So I'm going to have another video where I emphasize what I said a few seconds back regarding lists and dictionaries, because we're not doing that here. We're actually creating a brand new class and implementing a new object that includes that next value. So very well then. So when it runs, when we do this and we run the iterator over a for loop, the for loop takes the 5 as a start and the 15 as an end, right? Because, well, as part of the iterator, it's already inside its property, and it just runs as many times as it needs to do. It runs, and in this particular case, I'm just printing what is returning, and it just prints the values from 5 to 15, which is exactly what range will do, except range will not have included the 15. Range, the built-in function, will have gone from 5 to 14 and not include 15. In my case, I implemented the iterator in a way that it will also include the last value. Now let's try a few things. What will happen if I send a 5 and a 5? Go from 5 to 5. What is it going to do? Well, I'm curious. Let's see. The 5 was the first value. It went to the next one, which will be 6, but 6 goes over the numbers that it's going to iterate over. So it ends with the beginning. It didn't go anywhere. So what will happen if I don't send an integer, right? If I don't send an integer, what's going to happen? Well, it says, whoa, something I didn't like, because what you sent was not an integer. So it types this error. And as you can see, if I go back to the definition to where the class is defined, it shows right there that if you don't send an integer, for instance, for start and end, if they are not integers, I'm going to do that. The start and end values must be integers. All right, so that's it. That pretty much covers it. In conclusion, right, the big takeaway is if you create a class and you have the proper logic in the class, but it's as a requirement, you also have a next method inside the class, then you will be creating an iterator, right? Certain conditions apply, that you have the logic as you go through the next, and it's not required that you have the stop iteration, but I think it's a pretty good idea that you do, otherwise you could end up with an infinite loop. At some point you want to say, I want to stop iteration, so you make that as a property of your iterator. So you just created an iterator called InclusiveRange. And again, we're learning these concepts. This for my students coming out of CEIS 110 and are watching these new videos as a Python Plus, which is intended for my students that took CEIS 110 whenever the class is in there. So there are a lot of concepts that I provided here. And another one that I just want to repeat, right, is important that we cover here is the concept of an iterable, right? And that is not what we implemented here. An iterable could be a list, a string, tuples, dictionaries. And when the for loop runs a for loop based on an iterable, the for loop itself is going to make a certain call, and I'm going to cover that in another video, that actually turns the iterable into an object iterator so that it has a next value and is able to run and go through the loop. All right, so that's it for now, I'll talk to you later. I will be adding more videos regarding these concepts in in a few seconds, very shortly. I'll talk to you then. Take care. Bye-bye.